Hey everyone, and welcome to The Annoyed Adult. Howard couldn't make it today, so I'm your guest host for this deep dive into, well, some seriously thought-provoking stuff.
Okay.
Hedonism versus stoicism. Ever heard of them?
Oh, yeah.
Basically, two totally different approaches to, well, life, the universe, and everything.
It's so fascinating how these ancient philosophies can still resonate so strongly in our modern world.
Right. I mean, think about it. On one hand, you've got hedonism, which is all about chasing pleasure and happiness.
Right.
Like that feeling when you finally get to binge watch your favorite show after a crazy week, or when you treat yourself to that extra scoop of ice cream.
And then there's stoicism, which focuses on self-control, resilience, and accepting what you can't change. It's about finding inner peace amidst the chaos, kind of like that feeling of calm after a yoga class or meditation session.
Okay, but here's where things get interesting. You sent in some sources that got me thinking, are we, as a society, leaning a little too hard on the hedonism button? I mean, look at social media. It's like everyone's trying to live the perfect life.
Oh, yeah.
Showcasing their latest purchases, exotic vacations. It could be exhausting just keeping up.
That's a valid point. The constant exposure to curated, unrealistic portrayals of happiness can fuel a sense of dissatisfaction and a relentless pursuit of more.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, we have this hustle culture where everyone's supposed to be grinding 24/7.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, ambition is great, but it's like we're all pressured to optimize every single minute of our lives. Where's the chill?
That's where the principles of stoicism can offer a valuable counterpoint. It's not about pushing yourself to the brink of burnout, but finding contentment and inner peace, even amidst the everyday chaos.
Okay, so you also sent in this piece about 9 stoic practices for modern life.
Yes.
And get this, the guy who founded stoicism, Zeno, developed his philosophy after being shipwrecked.
Wow.
Talk about turning lemons into lemonade, or in this case, a shipwreck into a life philosophy.
It's a remarkable testament to the human capacity for finding meaning and growth.
Yeah.
Even in the face of adversity.
Right. Okay, so out of those 9 practices, there were a few that really jumped out at me as super relevant to us annoyed adults. The first one is all about developing an internal locus of control. In plain English, it means not letting external events like, you know, that annoying coworker who microwaves fish every day, totally dictate your mood.
The Stoics believed that.
Wow.
While we can't control everything that happens to us, we can control our reactions. It's about choosing how we respond to situations rather than letting them control our emotions.
Makes sense. And the source actually had this great quote from Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher. Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them.
Wow.
It's like, it's not the event itself, but how we choose to see it, right?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have more agency over our experience than we often realize.
Okay, so let's put this into practice. Imagine you're stuck in traffic, late for a meeting. The hedonistic approach might be to blast angry music, honk the horn, basically let the frustration take over.
Right.
But the Stoic approach, take a deep breath, maybe listen to something calming. Use that time to mentally prep for the meeting. Total different vibe.
It's a perfect example of how a subtle shift in mindset can dramatically impact our well-being.
And that's just one of the many Stoic practices that can help us navigate those everyday annoyances.
Right.
Speaking of which, the next one is all about guarding your time. And let's be real, time is precious.
Yeah.
And it feels like everyone's constantly trying to steal it.
Indeed, the Stoics placed great emphasis on the mindful allocation of time, recognizing its finite nature, and the importance of using it wisely.
Our source even had this killer quote from Seneca, another Stoic heavyweight.
Okay.
It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it.
Oh, mic drop.
It highlights how easily we squander this irreplaceable resource, often without even realizing it. Totally. Think about all those distractions we face daily.
Yeah.
Social media notifications, emails, that friend who calls just to chat for an hour.
Right.
The Stoic approach. Be super intentional about how you spend your time.
Yeah.
Set boundaries, say no more often, and prioritize the things that truly matter to you.
It's about reclaiming ownership of our time and using it to pursue our values and goals.
Now let's flip the script for a second and think about this from a hedonistic viewpoint.
Okay.
Imagine your weekend's wide open. The hedonist might say, let's hit that new restaurant, go to that concert, stay up late partying.
I see.
While the Stoic might be more inclined to say, you know what, I'm actually going to spend some time reading. Maybe go for a hike. And you get a good night's sleep.
It highlights the different values each philosophy places on pleasure and how those values can shape our choices and actions.
Okay, so we've talked about controlling our reactions and guarding our time. Let's move on to another key Stoic practice. Letting go of ego and vanity. Because let's face it, in a world of social media influencers and everyone trying to be the main character, it's easy to get caught up in appearances and what others think.
Right.
But the Stoics, they were all about keeping it real.
They recognize that ego and vanity often lead to a distorted perception of reality and unhealthy attachment to external validation.
And speaking of external validation, the source also emphasized that learning and growth become impossible when we think we already know everything.
Oh.
It's like that saying, empty your cup so that it may be filled.
Precisely. A willingness to learn and adapt is essential for navigating a world that is constantly evolving.
Right. So if a hedonist might prioritize looking good on social media, a Stoic might prioritize learning a new skill or expanding their knowledge. It's about focusing on internal growth rather than external validation.
It's a fundamental difference in their approach to life and what they deem valuable and fulfilling.
And you know what? The source even highlighted how the most brilliant minds today are constantly reading, taking courses, basically soaking up new knowledge. They understand that there's always something to learn, no matter how successful or experienced they are.
It's a reminder that intellectual humility and a thirst for knowledge are hallmarks of a truly wise and adaptable individual.
Okay, so next up, we have the Stoic practice of consolidating your thoughts in writing. Basically, good old journaling.
The Stoics believed in the power of introspection and self-reflection. Journaling was a common practice among them, allowing them to process their thoughts and gain clarity on their values and goals.
And here's a fun fact. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, was a big journaling fan. Can you imagine?
Wow.
The most powerful man in the world, taking time to write in his diary.
His personal writings, known as meditations, offer profound insights into his philosophical reflections and his struggles to live a virtuous life.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Journaling isn't just for emperors and philosophers. It's for all of us.
Right.
It's a way to declutter your mind, process emotions, and gain a deeper understanding of yourself. It's like having a conversation with yourself on paper.
It can be incredibly grounding, especially in a world that often feels chaotic and overwhelming.
So while a hedonist might be out there creating content for their followers, a Stoic might be journaling about their day, reflecting on their experiences and how they align with their values. See the difference in focus.
It's a reflection of their core values and what they prioritize in their pursuit of a meaningful and fulfilling life.
Okay, so we've covered controlling our reactions, guarding our time, letting go of ego, and journaling. What other Stoic gems are waiting to be uncovered?
Well, the next practice is a bit more challenging, but equally rewarding. It's about standing your ground, even when it's difficult.
Ooh, this sounds intriguing. So what exactly does it mean to stand your ground in the Stoic sense?
The Stoics believed in the importance of living in accordance with one's principles, even in the face of pressure or opposition.
So it's like having the courage to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Even when it's unpopular, inconvenient.
Exactly. It's about having the inner strength to stick to your values, even when it's hard.
And our source told this story about Cato, a Roman statesman known for his unwavering commitment to his beliefs. He often clashed with others, even powerful figures like Julius Caesar, because he refused to compromise his principles.
Cato's actions exemplify the Stoic emphasis on integrity and living in alignment with one's convictions.
Now let's imagine a scenario where you're offered a promotion that requires you to compromise your ethics. A hedonist might be tempted to take it, focusing on the increased pleasure and status that comes with a new position, but a Stoic might refuse, knowing that it would violate their principles, even if it means sacrificing potential rewards.
It's a powerful illustration of how our philosophical leanings can influence our decision-making, especially when faced with ethical dilemmas.
Right. It's about knowing your values and having the courage to live by them, even when it's tough. Okay, I'm starting to see why this Stoicism thing has stood the test of time.
It's a philosophy that offers practical guidance for navigating life's complexities with resilience and a deep sense of purpose.
Absolutely. And speaking of purpose, the next Stoic practice we'll explore is about staying focused amidst a world of distractions. Because, let's face it, our attention spans are being pulled in a million different directions these days.
It's a phenomenon the Stoics would have recognized, even though they didn't have smartphones, the social media vying for their attention. The principle of staying focused on what truly matters remains as relevant as ever.
And our source points out this thing called the paradox of choice.
Okay.
Which basically means that having too many options can actually paralyze us. It's like we're constantly scrolling through Netflix, overwhelmed by all the possibilities, and end up watching nothing.
Right.
Sound familiar?
It's a very real dilemma in our modern world where we're inundated with choices, information, and stimuli competing for our attention.
So what's the Stoic solution? Well, according to Seneca, it's all about having a clear purpose and direction. He said, if one does not know to which port one is sailing, no wind is favorable.
Wow.
In other words, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up drifting aimlessly, tossed about by every distraction that comes your way.
It's a powerful metaphor that emphasizes the importance of setting intentions, identifying our values, and aligning our actions with a clear sense of purpose.
And that's where things get really interesting. Because in a world that's constantly telling us to go with the flow and embrace spontaneity, the Stoics are basically saying, hold up, folks, let's get clear on what we actually want and then go after it with laser focus.
It's a call to mindful action, to resist the allure of distractions, and to channel our energies towards what truly matters in our lives.
And that's something I think we can all get behind, right? Because let's be honest, the constant bombardment of information and choices can leave us feeling scattered and overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But the Stoic approach reminds us that we have the power to choose what we focus on and to create a life that aligns with our deepest values.
It's about reclaiming our agency, taking control of our attention, and consciously shaping the trajectory of our lives.
And that's what makes Stoicism so incredibly relevant to us annoyed adults. It's not just about enduring hardship, it's about thriving amidst the chaos by cultivating a sense of inner peace, purpose, and resilience.
And as we delve further into the remaining Stoic practices, we'll uncover even more valuable insights for navigating the complexities of modern life with greater clarity, intention, and well-being.
Absolutely. But first, let's explore another fascinating Stoic practice that can help us navigate those inevitable ups and downs of life.
Okay.
And this one might surprise you because it involves, well, imagining the worst that could happen.
The Stoics believed that mentally preparing for potential setbacks and challenges could actually reduce anxiety and increase our ability to cope with adversity.
Wait, really? Isn't that like the opposite of positive thinking? Aren't we supposed to be visualizing good things happening?
Well, optimism has its place. The Stoics called this practice premeditatio malorum, which translates to a premeditation of evils. It's not about dwelling on negativity, but about acknowledging that challenges are an inevitable part of life and mentally preparing ourselves to face them with equanimity.
So it's like a mental fire drill for life's curveball.
Exactly. By considering potential downsides and risks, we're less likely to be caught off guard and can take steps to mitigate them.
Okay, I can see how that can be helpful. Our source even mentioned that. This practice can help us make better decisions in the present. By thinking through potential setbacks, we're more likely to make choices that minimize risk, or at least have a plan B in place.
It's about developing a more realistic and nuanced view of the world, acknowledging that setbacks are inevitable, but that we have the power to choose how we respond to them.
Okay, so let's say you're about to give a big presentation at work. Instead of just focusing on everything going perfectly, you also spend a few minutes imagining what could go wrong. Maybe the projector breaks. Maybe you forget a key point. Maybe someone asks a really tough question. By thinking through these possibilities, you can come up with backup plans and mentally prepare yourself for any curveballs that might come your way.
Precisely. It's about anticipating potential challenges and developing strategies to navigate them, rather than being caught off guard and reacting from a place of stress and anxiety.
And the cool thing is, even if the worst case scenario doesn't happen, you've still gained valuable mental resilience by facing your fears head on. It's like a mental workout for dealing with life's inevitable annoyances.
It's a practice that can help us cultivate a sense of inner strength and composure, knowing that we have the tools to navigate whatever challenges may arise.
I'm starting to think the Stoics were onto something with this whole mental preparedness thing. It's like they were the original life hackers.
Indeed. Their insights into human psychology and the nature of resilience remain remarkably relevant today.
Okay, ready for the final Stoic gem?
Yes.
It's a big one. And it's all about remembering that nothing endures.
The Stoics were acutely aware of the impermanence of all things, recognizing that everything in life is in a constant state of flux, and that nothing, and not even our own lives, will last forever.
And our source even quoted Marcus Aurelius on this. Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both.
Wow.
Talk about putting things in perspective.
It's a reminder that death is the great equalizer, and that all of our accomplishments, possessions, and even our identities are ultimately fleeting.
So what's the point of striving for anything if it's all going to disappear eventually?
The Stoics believed that recognizing the impermanence of all things could actually liberate us from the tyranny of attachment and the pursuit of external validation.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see where they're going with this. It's like, if nothing lasts forever, then we should focus on living in the present moment and appreciating what we have rather than clinging to things or constantly striving for more.
It's a call to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the present moment and to detach ourselves from the illusion of permanence.
And, this ties back to what we were talking about earlier with hedonism, right?
Yes.
The constant pursuit of pleasure and external validation can be a never-ending treadmill, always chasing the next high, but never truly finding satisfaction.
Precisely. The Stoics recognize that true contentment comes from within, from aligning our actions with our values and living in accordance with nature.
So it's not about denying ourselves pleasure or giving up on our goals, but about approaching life with a sense of balance and perspective, recognizing that everything is temporary and that true fulfillment comes from living a virtuous life in the present moment.
It's a profound insight that can offer a sense of peace and liberation amidst the inevitable ups and downs of life.
Wow, we've really dived deep into Stoicism today. I'm starting to see how these practices can be super helpful in navigating the modern world.
Indeed. The Stoics offer us a wealth of wisdom for cultivating resilience, clarity, and its sense of purpose.
But before we completely wrap up, we need to explore the other side of the coin.
Okay.
Hedonism. Because let's be honest, who doesn't enjoy a little bit of pleasure and indulgence now and then?
Right.
I mean, life's too short to be a total stoic robot, right?
Absolutely. The key is to find a harmonious balance between the pursuit of pleasure and the cultivation of virtue, a concept we'll delve into further.
Perfect. But first, let's step into the world of social media influencers and see how their lifestyles and messages might be contributing to a culture of, well, hedonism.
Welcome back to our exploration of Stoicism and hedonism in the modern world. Before we ventured into the realm of social media influencers, we were discussing the Stoic practice of remembering that nothing endures. It's a powerful concept that encourages us to appreciate the present moment and detach from the illusion of permanence.
It really makes you think about what truly matters, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about those influencers.
Okay.
You sent in this article. That asks a really interesting question. If everyone's becoming a social media influencer, then who are they influencing? It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it.
It certainly highlights the pervasiveness of influencer culture and the potential impact it has on our values and aspirations.
Right. And the article raises some concerns about how influencers might be fueling mindless consumerism and unrealistic expectations, especially among younger generations.
It's important to remember that what we see on social media is often a highly curated and idealized version of reality.
Totally. Like those perfectly filtered photos. And sponsored posts don't always tell the whole story.
Right.
There's a lot of hard work. And maybe even a little bit of smoke and mirrors going on behind the scenes.
Indeed. It's crucial to maintain a critical lens when engaging with influencer content, and to remember that it's often a form of marketing designed to sell products or services.
And the article even pointed out how some influencers are glorifying hustle culture, but glossing over the realities of work, finances, and the potential for burnout. It's like they're saying, work yourself to the bone, and you too can have all this.
It's a message that can be both alluring and potentially harmful, particularly for those who may be struggling with their own sense of self-worth and achievement.
Okay, so how does all of this tie back to hedonism?
Well, think about it this way. Influencer culture often promotes a hedonistic lifestyle, focused on accumulating possessions, experiences, and external validation. It's about constantly chasing the next high, the next purchase, the next Instagram-worthy moment.
So it's like that never-ending cycle we were talking about earlier. Always seeking more, but never truly finding contentment.
Exactly.
But isn't hedonism just about enjoying life and seeking pleasure?
That's a great question. Is there anything inherently wrong with that? It's important to distinguish between different types of hedonism. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, who is often associated with hedonism, actually advocated for a more nuanced approach. He believed that true pleasure came from living a simple life, free from pain and anxiety, and cultivating meaningful relationships.
So it's not just about indulging in every whim and desire, but about finding a more balanced and sustainable approach to pleasure.
Right.
Like enjoying a delicious meal with friends.
Yeah.
Or spending time in nature.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a mindful and intentional approach to pleasure, rather than letting it become a fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying pursuit.
Okay, so maybe influencer culture is promoting a kind of distorted version of hedonism, one that's focused on external validation and material possessions, rather than genuine happiness and well-being.
It's a perspective worth considering. And as we continue our exploration, we'll delve deeper into the potential benefits and drawbacks of both hedonism and stoicism, and how we can find a balance between these two seemingly opposing philosophies.
That sounds fascinating. But before we go there, you also sent in this super helpful podcast outline that had me cracking up. It offers a more balanced perspective on hedonism and stoicism, and it even includes some comedic takes on both philosophies.
Humor can be a valuable tool for diffusing the seriousness of philosophical discussions and making them more relatable and engaging.
Totally. So according to this outline, it's not about choosing one philosophy over the other. It's about finding a middle ground, incorporating elements of both hedonism and stoicism into our lives. It's like creating our own philosophical cocktail, right?
Precisely. It's about recognizing that both philosophies offer valuable perspectives and practices that can enhance our well-being when applied thoughtfully.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we find that sweet spot between stoicism and hedonism?
Well, imagine this. You're diligently practicing stoic principles during the week, focusing on your goals, controlling your reactions, and using your time wisely. But then come the weekend, you allow yourself to indulge in some guilt-free pleasure. Maybe you plan a fun outing with friends, treat yourself to a delicious meal, or simply relax and enjoy your favorite hobbies. It's about creating a balance that works for you, recognizing that both pleasure and discipline have their place in a fulfilling life.
So it's like having the best of both worlds, enjoying life's simple pleasures, while also staying grounded and focused on what truly matters.
Exactly. It's about integrating the wisdom of both philosophies to create a life that is both meaningful and enjoyable.
You know, this reminds me of something the outline mentioned about finding joy in everyday things. It's a very stoic concept. But the hedonistic twist is to really savor those moments and appreciate them fully.
It's a beautiful synthesis of both philosophies, recognizing that true contentment often lies in the intersection of discipline and enjoyment.
Okay, so we've explored stoicism. We've ventured into the world of hedonism and influencer culture. And we've even discovered a potential middle ground where these two philosophies can coexist harmoniously. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the stoic practice of standing your ground.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on that a bit more? What does that look like in a modern context?
Of course. Imagine you're at a social gathering and someone makes a joke that you find offensive.
Okay.
A hedonistic approach might be to laugh along, even if it makes you uncomfortable, to avoid any potential conflict or social awkwardness, but a stoic. Remembering their commitment to living in accordance with their values, might choose to speak up, politely but firmly, expressing their disapproval of the joke.
That's a great example. It shows how stoicism can empower us to stand up for what we believe in, even when it's challenging.
Exactly. It's about having the courage to be true to ourselves, even in situations where it might be easier to conform or remain silent.
And how does this principle apply to other areas of life, like our careers or personal relationships?
Well, think about a situation where you're asked to do something at work that you feel is unethical.
Okay.
A hedonist might be tempted to go along with it, prioritizing their own advancement or the approval of their superiors, but a stoic, guided by their principles of integrity and justice, might choose to raise their concerns, even if it means risking their job or facing backlash.
Wow, that's a really powerful example. It shows how stoicism can provide us with a moral compass, helping us navigate those tricky situations where our values are being tested.
Precisely. It's about having the inner strength to do what's right, even when it's difficult or unpopular. And that kind of moral courage is essential for living a life that aligns with our deepest convictions.
I'm really starting to see how stoicism can be such a valuable tool for navigating the complexities of modern life. It's not just about enduring hardship.
Right.
It's about thriving amidst the chaos.
Yeah.
By cultivating a sense of inner peace, purpose, and integrity.
And remember, even if you don't fully embrace stoicism as a way of life, there are still many valuable lessons and practices that we can all learn from this ancient philosophy. It's about finding what resonates with you and integrating those principles into your own unique approach to life.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
It's not about being a stoic purist, but about finding what works for you and creating a life that reflects your values and aspirations. And who knows, maybe by incorporating a little bit of stoicism into our lives, we can all become a little less annoyed.
That's certainly a worthy goal.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored stoicism, we've delved into hedonism, and we've even talked about social media influencers and their impact on our culture. But before we wrap up this epic philosophical journey, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
What's your biggest takeaway from our conversation today? What insight or idea resonating with you the most?
That's a great question. For me, the most striking takeaway is the importance of finding a balance between the pursuit of pleasure and the cultivation of virtue. It's not about choosing one over the other, but about creating a life that embraces both enjoyment and purpose.
I love that. It's about finding that sweet spot where we can savor life's simple pleasures while also staying grounded, focused, and true to ourselves.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that is both meaningful and enjoyable, where we can thrive amidst the challenges and opportunities of the modern world.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive into hedonism versus stoicism. But before we go, I want to leave you with one final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
What does your ideal balance look like? How can you incorporate elements of both stoicism and hedonism into your daily life to create a more fulfilling and joyful existence?
It's a question worth pondering, and I encourage you to explore these philosophies further and discover how their wisdom can enhance your own unique journey through life.
Beautifully said. And that's a wrap on this episode of the Annoyed Adult Podcast. Thanks for joining us on this philosophical adventure. And remember, it's okay to be annoyed sometimes, but it's also important to find ways to cultivate joy, resilience, and a sense of purpose in our lives.
Until next time, may you find both wisdom and delight in your journey.
See you soon on the Annoyed Adult Podcast.
So we've explored stoicism, we've delved into hedonism, and we've even talked about social media influencers and their impact on our culture. It's been quite the philosophical journey.
Indeed, we have covered a lot of ground today. And I hope our conversation has sparked some new insights and perspectives for our listeners.
Absolutely. But before we wrap up this episode, you sent in one more source that I think ties everything together beautifully. It's a list of comedic takes on hedonism and stoicism. That had me laughing out loud.
Oh, fun.
I think it'll help us solidify our understanding of these philosophies in a lighthearted way. I always appreciate a good dose of humor, especially when discussing complex philosophical concepts. It helps make them more accessible and relatable.
Totally. Okay, so here's one that really tickled me. A stoic walks into a bar and orders a glass of water.
Okay.
A hedonist walks into the same bar and orders everything on the menu.
It's a humorous way of illustrating the contrasting approaches to pleasure and self-control that each philosophy embodies.
Right. And here's another one. A stoic is asked what the meaning of life is. They respond, to endure. A hedonist is asked the same question and says, to party.
It highlights the different values and priorities that shape our perspectives and choices.
So maybe it's not about choosing one philosophy over the other, but about finding a balance. That works for us as individuals.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that both stoicism and hedonism offer valuable insights and practices that can enhance our lives when applied thoughtfully and intentionally.
It's like we were saying earlier, creating our own personalized philosophical cocktail. Blending the best of both worlds.
It's a wonderful analogy we can choose to embrace. The stoic principles of resilience, self-control, and acceptance, while also allowing ourselves to experience joy, pleasure, and the beauty of the present moment.
And maybe that's the key to navigating the complexities of modern life, finding that sweet spot where we can be both wise and joyful, disciplined and spontaneous, grounded and adventurous.
It's a journey of self-discovery, and I encourage you to explore these philosophies further and find what resonates with you most deeply.
Beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this episode of the Annoyed Adult Podcast. Thanks for joining us on this philosophical adventure. And remember, it's okay to be annoyed sometimes, but it's also important to find ways to cultivate joy, resilience, and a sense of purpose in our lives.
So until next time, may you find both wisdom and delight in your journey.
See you soon on the Annoyed Adult Podcast.